And welcome back to the Digital Education Station, everyone. I am Ryan Fran, the Chief Communications Officer for Arcadia Unified School District, and this, of course, is Dr. Vannasdall, Superintendent.
Glad to be here.
Of the school district. Thanks so much for being here. Exciting topic today. We are talking about the lab school for the 2019-2020 school year next year and what that will entail. So we've had the lab school now for going on 2 years, and it's just been a great place for learning, instruction, and everything that has taken place down there. Shifting focus a little bit for this next year, so a little bit behind the why and the vision for the lab school for next school year.
Yeah, well, we've been on this incredible journey on individualized learning, personalized learning, really looking for ways to give students more voice and choice in their learning. And this has been a journey that the whole district's on. So this is happening in all classrooms throughout the district. But when we're trying new strategies in the classroom, it's a lot easier to try with a small group of kids before you go to scale with everyone. One of our values is learn from failure. So when you try new things, you have to be willing to say, that worked, that didn't. So really the concept of a lab school, and they've been around for a long time at universities. A lot of teaching colleges have lab high schools. And what they do is they try new things there. And so this is a model that we kind of took from some of the best universities in the country and tried to duplicate. So really it's about us on a small learning environment exploring what are the many different ways that we can give students more voice and choice in their learning and start to turn the driving of their education over from adults to students. So we're really excited. We've learned a lot already, but we're looking forward to continuing that exploration.
And then what grade level for students will this be open and available for next year?
Yeah, I know. I've had a lot of parents asking that. And, we started with 7th graders originally, and then we kept them until 8th graders, and now they're going to matriculate onto the high school. So this year, or coming up in August, we're going to start over with a new cohort of 6th graders. Tell you why. There's a lot of reasons, a lot of discussion around that, but one of the things that we recognized is that we tried to allow the first cohort to stay connected to their home middle school. And we did a lot of things playing around with transportation back and forth between the AEC, the location of the lab school, and their home school. And that just didn't work. That was one of those things that, we tried different methods, it just didn't work. So we're really interested in making the lab school the home school for this cohort of students. So this will be their middle school, so to speak, for the upcoming year if they're in this, if they're in the lab school. So that was the reason for the 6th grade, because all students are now transitioning out of 5th grade. And by the way, just to remind all our parents that we have 3 of the most amazing award-winning world-class middle schools in Arcadia. So this isn't about trying to improve, so to speak, or do something better than the other middle schools. It's just different. And so for so many of our parents, I know their kids are excited to be going to one of our 3 middle schools, and they're going to have, an extraordinary experience. This is just another option, and we believe that as kids are leaving 5th grade, it's a good transition year for students that want to participate in something different.
There's definitely no bad choice when you're going to Arcadia
it's always
Middle
a good reminder
Exactly.
to parents that you can't go wrong.
So what will be the main focus in the lab school for next year? What will that kind of look like?
Yeah, we have 4 main goals, and there's always a lot of things like in any classroom that teachers are doing at any one time and students, but we really want to hone in on focusing and doing research around 4 areas. The first one is individual goal setting. We recognize that great teachers have been doing this since the beginning of time, and a lot of our teachers in Arcadia do this. But the key is when it's to formalize this process. So what happens when a teacher, a parent, and a student are collectively getting together and constantly setting new goals? And the key is both emotional goals. So, it could be like, how are you at leadership? How are you at collaborating? And that is as important. What we're finding from CEOs and colleges, that those skills, what we used to call the soft skills, or we're now calling the super skills, because that's what employers want. So those skills are as important as the academic skills. But it's really important to formalize that process, and right now we're using the ALT platform to do that, where kids are writing goals. So they're not just getting ready to do a new assignment, but they're saying, while I do this unit or project, I really want to focus on being a better leader in my group. And so at the end, it's not just about evaluating the work you did, but how you did the work, and how did you collaborate with your peers and get along. So that's one of them. The second thing is community project partnerships. That sounds like a big thing. Really what that is that we recognize that we have such amazing parents doing so many different jobs in our community, that we want to tap into that expertise and begin to partner our students with parents or experts out in the field in our community that can share, what they do with students. So, an example would be that, let's say, a student's really interested in science and space exploration. Well, we happen to have JPL right in our backyard. We have a lot of parents, over 200 parents that work for JPL. What if those students, when they're creating their project or at the same time working with the teacher, are also getting mentored by an actual scientist that can help give them feedback and guide their project, right? It just takes it to a whole nother level. So that's two. The third one is what we call project-based learning. Again, that's a fancy way of saying that instead of the traditional mode of teaching where it starts with direct instruction, where a teacher's saying, all right, get out your notebook, we're going to take notes for the next hour. It really starts with a big question, and it's a real relevant problem, right? An example would be the Chamber of Commerce called me from Arcadia and said, hey, we've had a decline in tourism in Arcadia. Could you guys help us figure out how to better attract tourists to Arcadia? Because, it's good for the local economy, it's all that. They would begin by inquiring, like, what are those big questions they have to ask? What is the real source of the problem? They would have to work with the chamber on the actual data, so there'd be some math involved. How do you take the data from the last 10 years and show that on a graph of how it's declined, right? Then they would have to use, obviously, some English skills, and if they're going to have proposals for how the Chamber of Commerce should do things different to attract people, they have to write that up. So you start to see there's different content being drawn in, but it's not you're learning math, now you're learning science, now you're learning English. It starts with a big problem, a real problem, and students are solving real-world problems in our community. And through all that, they're learning deeply, and deeper than they ever have in the past, because it's not about just getting through the material and saying, I learned it, I covered chapter 2, but I solved a real problem in Arcadia. So that's kind of what we mean by project-based learning. So all of the learning is done through that method. And then the fourth one is competency-based grading. What this means is there's no traditional grades. So students do not get an A or a B. This has been really difficult for a lot of parents and students because we have been taught to constantly compare ourselves, right? Like, where am I in the class compared to you, and am I doing better than you? Where we're trying to get to is you're competing against yourself. We want every student to be able to bring out their very best. And it's not about comparing, but it's about you constantly challenging yourself to be the very best you can be and bring out your unique talents. And our system in America of colleges and universities has proven that any student that excels, there's a place for them. There's a college for them to go. So it's really not about us constantly comparing and deciding who should move on and who shouldn't. So it's really about constant feedback. So what you would expect if you were in this program as a parent and a student is you're getting constant narrative feedback on everything. So a teacher is constantly commenting, replying, hey, try this, I like the way you did this, but you need to improve in this area. It's not about just here's an A or here's a B. And really, what does that mean? It's about constant feedback, sort of like we get in the real world in our jobs.
Right.
You don't just all of a sudden come to an end of a quarter and your supervisor says you're a B. it's this continuous feedback loop about you becoming better. And so that's what we're exploring, and that's where education is moving. In fact, a lot of high schools are actually moving in that arena. So we're waiting for the colleges to catch up. For our high school right now, we're still doing do no harm. We're still doing grades. It's not like we're going to make this massive, but it's time for us to begin to explore what that looks like. So we're going to be doing competency-based grading in this program.
So I know you talked about the 4 focuses of the lab school, and as you alluded to, our middle schools are doing a lot of these things, particularly the goal setting, the project-based learning. There's large pockets of this already happening at our other schools, correct?
Right, absolutely. So that again, and I can't reiterate that enough, that it's not that what we're doing here is in isolation. In fact, our goal is to scale out when it's appropriate. And so a lot of times what our teachers are doing in the lab school, they are collaborating with teachers in the other 3 middle schools on some of these projects. But it really is a place for us to really research these new strategies.
What type of student would be best for this program? Are we looking for, they should be looking at this program? What kind of student are we talking about here?
That's a really good question. And as a parent, that's the question I'd be asking. Like, okay, this seems interesting, but let me start by saying what it's not. And I think that's just because there are some aspects of the program that will cause a parent and a student to just say, this isn't for me now. You know, some of it might look appealing, but for logistical reasons, it's not. And one of those is that because of the location of the program and its narrow focus as far as those 4 areas, we will not have access to band, any of the music programs, or any of the sports programs and the teams. So for starters, and that also would include our traditional ASB and student government. If you're a student that like that, you know, I play an instrument, I'm looking forward to that, going to one of our middle schools with their, great
bands,
reputations for their bands, then that's just a program that you need to stay on that course. Secondly, we're really looking for students that are self-motivated, because as we personalize education more and more, it requires a lot more of students to be self-motivated in their work. And also that they're intrinsically motivated, meaning that getting that constant A or B in the class isn't what moves them forward. It's really about wanting to learn and that deep desire to learn and learning in different ways. We've had students that in our current lab school, they were really good at being students. What that means is they've got it dialed in, how to take notes, how to do some worksheets and these things. But when it comes to the real deep critical thinking, sometimes, it's a struggle. It's like, hey, this is hard, and I don't enjoy this as much. Sometimes, this may not be, where every project is going to be like that. Where in the traditional, maybe sometimes you're doing project-based learning, some classes, because, you're exposed to many teachers.
Right.
Where in the lab, it's 2 teachers, about 30 kids all day. So it is truly a smaller learning environment. Students that manage their time well is very important, right? Because they have a lot going on, and they may not all be doing the exact same thing at the same time. So that's an important strength. And I think one of the things that may be a really good match is students that, for whatever reason, have just always desired a small learning environment. I've experienced both. I went to a very small high school. I graduated with 33 students in my high school, right?
Wow.
But then I graduated and I went to college with 25,000 students. And there's just clearly a difference. And it's not one's better over the other. There's sometimes where students just prefer a smaller environment than a larger one. And so, again, part of our lab school is about us giving more options. It's not about one is better than the other. It's about what's the best fit for you as a parent. And we're exploring this. Our hope in the future is that we have many options in elementary, middle, and high school for students that fit who they are, what type of learner they are. So this is just our growth in trying to explore those areas.
So Dr. Vannasdall, if I'm a student or a parent considering this new lab school, what is the commitment, the expectation on my end that the district is looking for, the lab school is looking for to fulfill?
Yeah, as with all our schools, we really need parents to be partners with us. So as we explore some of these new strategies, we're really expecting a lot of communication between the student, the parent, and the teacher. And especially because of this competency-based grading, you're not just getting A's and B's, but there's a constant communication feed, and we use the platform for that. So there's an expectation that parents are checking that feed, they're reading it, and they're responding, and they're just being true partners in their child's education. Secondly, it is a year commitment. So once we start the year, we expect for students that apply and get accepted that they commit for the whole year. I know I've been asked, is this a 3-year commitment? Meaning, is this going to be all 3 years? We are not committing to that right now. Just that as a school district to the student and student back, that we commit for 1 year. And then we're going to see. Because it's a lab school, we want to keep that option open to iterate. If there's ways that we can improve it and we want to go a different direction, we want to be able to do that. So it's really just 1 year commitment by the student and our commitment back to the family.
And with the lab school environment, we see with our current students and teachers, it's got to be flexibility on everyone's part, because you're trying new things and we're not exactly, have the cement path laid out. And so you got to be a little bit flexible, right?
We also get a lot of visitors at the lab school because we're trying new strategies, both internal, meaning we're inviting staff over from within our own districts to see what's going on, and from the outside. So not only flexible, but I'd also add students that are comfortable talking about their learning, comfortable sharing their thought patterns and what they're working on with outside people. That would be important as well.
Very exciting. So more information will be coming out, and parent meeting as well coming up for those interested, and we'll have more information there as well.
All right.
Dr. Vannasdall, thank you as always, and that is another edition of the Digital Education Station. Everyone, thank you, and we will see you soon.